Okay, so in this video, there's actually a lot that goes into this user-driven loop here. So this video is going to just focus on that. I just want to bring your attention to the program behavior here. So this is what the user is going to see when they're ready to start entering some foods. Food number 1 info, food number 2 info, food number 3 info, and so on. So let's look at how we can manage that. Now, with a user-driven loop, there's no loop counter per se. So how am I going to get the food 1, food 2, food 3, that counting mechanism? Well, I did mention in the last video that we have this guy up here, the current food index variable. This is going to keep track of where we are in the arrays. And so this is really the closest thing we have in this program to a loop counter. Now the problem is his value is 0. So we don't want it to say enter food 0, enter food 1. We want to start counting at 1 as lay people are used to doing. So what we'll do is offset that. So my first prompt to the user will be this. I'm going to use current food index but offset it by 1. So that'll be food number 1. And food 2 and so on. Okay, so we had mentioned that there are some spaces in the foods, possibly, right? So we're going to use getLine to get the input on the food at least, and look at where the data is going into that foods I ate today array. Okay, that's the string array that holds the foods, right? The names of the foods. And look at the index here. I'm not going to hard code an index, but I'm using that current food index. So first time through the loop, this current food index is 0. And so that first food is going to go right into that 0 element, and which is where we want it, okay? And then we also want to get the calories from the user. So I'm going to add a couple of lines. I'm going to prompt the user for the calories. And then we can just use regular cin on the calories and look at where the calories are going into the calories array, calories in each food array. Again, using that current food index to get the data into the correct place in the array. Okay, and you know, now as we're talking about the current food index, we are going to have to increment it when we're done entering foods. I'm going to put it in here. I mean, we still have some more to do in here, but I'm going to go ahead and put that in there just to make sure I don't forget it later. I'll kind of put it at the bottom here, but definitely want to increment that so we're moving on to the next elements in the array. If the user does decide to enter another food, it needs to be in the new location in the array, so we need to increment that. Okay, so one thing we're going to be asked to do, I don't know if this is probably somewhere in the instructions, but if the user, oh yeah, it says calories must be between 0 and 3,000 per food. So we're going to make sure they don't enter negative calories, and also nothing that exceeds 3,000 for whatever reason. That's the cutoff value that we've been given. So I am going to add a data input validation loop, which we've done before. Okay, so while the calories that they just entered are less than 0, okay, or the calories they just entered are greater than 3,000, we're going to come right back at them and say, they have to be between 0 and 3,000. Please re-enter. And then we need the cin to re-enter those calories. Okay? So that's your data validation loop. Okay? And then now, okay, so I have the current food index incremented. That's good. Okay, so now we're at the point where we can ask them, do you want to enter another food? Yes or no? And I want to make sure that they are not at that 20 food limit. So we're only going to ask them if they want to enter again if they're still below that max food limit. So we'll say if the current food index is less than the max food, Okay, do you want to enter again? And then we're going to absorb that with the with cin. Okay, that's going to go into the again variable, which is a char type for holding the yes or the no. I am going to run that through the toLower function, so I only have to test against a lowercase y. Okay, and one more quick thing. Okay, when you are using a mixture of getLine and cin, like we are in this program, in this loop, you can get some really strange behaviors with the input. Like it might whiz past one of the prompts and you're like, hey, wait a minute, I didn't get to enter the food name, or I didn't get to enter the calories. Or you might see it like you enter something, you hit the enter key, and then it just goes crazy and it's like, you know, whizzing by like a slot machine. So what you can do is use cin.ignore. I'm going to paste this in. Okay. Cin.ignore, you can think of that like Drano for flushing a pipe. You're flushing the input buffer, cleaning it out, because that's what causes those problems. It's like you have an enter key lingering in the input buffer, and it just messes up everything. It throws off all the input. So here we're using cin.ignore, okay, to flush that buffer. And this is basically saying ignore the next 100 characters, which is way more than is going to be in there, or up to the enter key, the new line there. Okay, so that should do it. And then I just threw in an endl to get a little space between the foods. Okay, so that is your loop, and then I will continue in the next video.